Hey, Steve Saretsky here. I want to put together a quick video, put a blog up on my website about the Canadian economy's addiction to real estate, and so that's at my website. I'll put it in the link below. And basically, there was also a very good article in Maclean's last week about the similarities between Canada's current economic situation and their housing situation versus the U.S. Financial crisis back in 2006 to 2008, and the uncanny similarities between the two. And actually, that article made the argument that Canada is actually in a worse situation than the United States was back then. So I think that if you go and look at that, I'm going to put the link in that and for that article in the description below as well. But it's some very good information to take away there. But just to get back to it, all of this, everybody thinks that because Vancouver dodged a bullet back in 08, 09, I think our prices dropped roughly about 12%, and it lasted about 6 months, that, Vancouver is some kind of an anomaly. But if you actually look at it, I mean, what propped up, Canada is, we had high oil prices. We ended up going to 40-year amortization rates. Dropped the interest rates, really just kept the economy going. Harper basically kicked the can down the road, and here we are into 2016. Debt levels are at record high, so they're 168%. So basically how that works is Canadians owe $1.68 in debt for every dollar they make in income. Back in the States in 06, 07, those levels reached their peak at $1.28. So here in Canada, $1.68. To the States, that was at $1.28. So you had a huge difference right there. And basically Canada's, with that in mind and our prices, Vancouver and Toronto, since 1998, there's a graph there that shows Vancouver and Toronto real estate prices have increased more since 1998, have increased more than some of the major global cities in the United States. That included New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami. So Vancouver and Toronto real estate, as of right now, has increased more than any of those cities, even including their major booms they had, back in 2004 to 2006. And Canada, the problem here is any kind of slowdown in the Canadian economy, any kind of slowdown in real estate is gonna have a major impact on the Canadian economy, and obviously with that coming is also would have an effect on real estate prices. Canada's economy is so dependent on real estate. I mean, you look at Vancouver. What does Vancouver really have as an economy over the last couple of years? It's basically been real estate. Canada actually reached an all-time high. Real estate made up 8%. 8% of our GDP is from residential real estate. That's higher than the United States was back in their peak in 2007. So you have this major dependence on real estate to drive the economy. Most of the jobs, especially in Vancouver, are real estate related, whether that's realtors, mortgage brokers, construction guys, electricians, plumbers, framers, you name it. So really, I mean, any kind of slowdown in real estate is going to have a massive impact on jobs here locally, and on the Canadian economy. It'll massively slow it down. I mean, there's some more numbers out there. What they call the FIRE sector, so that's the finance, insurance, and real estate sector. That makes up 20% of Canada's GDP, 20%. And back in the States in 2007, the high there was 18%. So Canada's FIRE sector makes up 20%, while the United States was 18%. And I think probably the most startling stat of all that I could really pull out of it is, again, it's our massive dependence. Our economic growth has been entirely from real estate. Housing ownership, here's a stat. Housing ownership transaction costs represented nearly 20% of total GDP growth since 2014. Again, so that's housing ownership transaction costs. have represented nearly 20% of our growth since 2014. So that's like, property transfer taxes. So even a slowdown in sales, that reduces the amount of property transfer tax right there. So it has a major impact on the economy, and I think the government knows we're basically at the point where we're backed into a corner right now. Interest rates are as low as they've ever been. They really can't go much lower. Canadians' debt levels are so high. Our interest rates are so low that they're basically out of ammunition there. They even if they lower them a little bit, quarter of a percent, 0.5%, bring them down to zero. The debt levels are so high because everybody's paying these massive mortgages. I don't think people can't spend. They're just not spending anymore. They cannot spend anymore. So the government's basically out of ammunition there. Last week they released a massive stimulus package, which is pretty much the last arsenal they have there. Hoping to grow the economy. But like I said, there's a massive dependence in the Canadian economy on real estate. So any kind of slowdown, like we're seeing right now in Vancouver real estate, home sales down roughly 40% from last year, is going to have a major impact on the economy. It seems at this point it's almost probable that we'll enter a recession in 2017. The evidence is insurmountable. Again, I'm going to put a link below in the description to my blog that has all the the graphs and charts and the data that shows the similarities to where we currently are, what the Canadian economy is versus where the United States was back in 2007. I think if you look at that, it will kind of help you understand where we are and the similarities. And you heard the common argument that Vancouver is some kind of anomaly, that it's different this time. And I think history tends to repeat itself, and it's definitely interesting times, I think, to come ahead. But hopefully this helps. Hopefully you check out the links in the description. Again, that should give you a little more information on where we are right now.